Picture this: Christmas Eve, 1970. While families gathered around warm fireplaces, exchanging gifts and sharing love, someone was dumping a young woman's body in the freezing woods of Beaver County, Pennsylvania. And folks, this isn't your typical true crime story. This is one that'll keep you up at night, questioning everything you think you know about human nature. Hey, true crime family. Before we dive deeper into this chilling mystery, if you're already getting goosebumps, smash that like button and subscribe to join our detective squad. Trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next. The discovery was something straight out of a nightmare. Two teenage boys, probably expecting nothing more than a regular day of hunting, stumbled upon something that would haunt them for the rest of their lives. There, in the dense woods off Brady's Run Road, lay the body of a young woman. And get this, she was completely nude, except for a single red sock. I know what you're thinking. Just one sock. Well, stick around because that's just the beginning of this twisted tale. Now, here's where things get really interesting, folks. And if you're enjoying this deep dive into one of Pennsylvania's most puzzling cold cases, why not hit that subscribe button? Every subscription helps us shed light on these forgotten stories. The woman was found face down in the dirt, her body partially decomposed. But here's the kicker. She had been carefully placed there, almost positioned. The medical examiner would later reveal that she hadn't just been dumped. She had been deliberately arranged. And let me tell you something. In my years of covering true crime, when a killer takes time to position their victim, it usually means something. Something dark. The investigators who arrived at the scene that day described it as one of the most perplexing cases they'd ever encountered. Why? Well, grab your detective notebooks because this is where things get wild. Not only was there no identification on the body, but there were also no distinguishing marks, no jewelry, and no nearby clothes. It's like this young woman had simply materialized in those woods. Dispatch, we're going to need additional units and the county coroner. This is something different. Those were the first words radioed back to the station. And different it was. The responding officers had no idea they were about to begin one of the longest-running Jane Doe cases in Pennsylvania history. Quick break for our amazing true crime family. If you're as invested in this story as I am, drop a detective in the comments. Your engagement helps us bring more of these important stories to light. The medical examiner's initial findings were shocking. The victim was estimated to be between 15 and 25 years old, with shoulder-length brown hair and, here's where it gets interesting, perfectly maintained teeth. Someone had cared for this young woman, taken her to dentists, made sure she was healthy. So how did she end up here, alone in the woods, forgotten and unnamed? But wait, there's something else. Something that made even the most seasoned detectives uncomfortable. The position of her body, the single red sock, the careful placement. It all pointed to one disturbing conclusion. This wasn't a random act of violence. This was methodical, planned, personal. And if you think that's unsettling, just wait until you hear about the mysterious phone calls that started coming in to the police station just days after her discovery. But before we get to that bombshell, hey true crime sleuths, if you're loving this deep dive into the Beaver County Jane Doe case, don't forget to hit that like button. Every like helps us continue telling these important stories that deserve to be heard. January 1971. The Beaver County Police Department's phones started ringing off the hook. And these weren't your typical, "I think I saw something" calls. No. These were different. The first caller, a woman with what officers described as a distinctive accent, claimed she knew our Jane Doe's identity. But here's where it gets weird. She would only give information in cryptic bits and pieces. And get this. The mystery caller claimed our Jane Doe was actually from Maryland. I know what you're thinking. Finally a lead. Well, hold on to your detective hats, because this rabbit hole goes deeper than anyone expected. Quick sidebar for my amazing viewers. If you're getting chills from this story, drop a snowflake in the comments. And while you're there, that like button is looking pretty lonely. The investigation team, led by Detective James Patterson, no, not that James Patterson, though this case could fill a bestseller, began an extensive search through missing persons reports from Maryland. But here's the twist that had everyone scratching their heads. None of the missing persons matched our Jane Doe's description perfectly. It was like she was a ghost, existing between the cracks of official records. The medical examiner's detailed report revealed something else, something that made this case even more heartbreaking. Our Jane Doe had recently given birth, probably within the year before her death. Let that sink in. Somewhere out there might be a child who never knew their mother's fate, a child who might still be searching for answers today. But wait, it gets even more bizarre. Remember that single red sock? Well, textile experts determined it wasn't just any sock. It was a specific brand, sold exclusively in high-end department stores across the East Coast. And here's the kicker, it was relatively new. No wear and tear, no fading. Almost like it was placed there deliberately. A message, a signature, or something else entirely. Hey, true crime family. If these details are blowing your mind like they did mine, smash that subscribe button. Together, we can keep these cold cases in the spotlight where they belong. The investigation took another turn when a second anonymous caller contacted the police station. This time, a man claiming to be from Pittsburgh. His story: he swore he'd seen our Jane Doe at a local diner just days before her body was found. According to him, she wasn't alone. She was with a man described as well-dressed and businesslike. The caller provided details that hadn't been released to the public, details that made the investigators' blood run cold. He described her wearing a distinctive bracelet, one that was never found with her body. But how did he know about it? And more importantly, why didn't he come forward in person? As detectives dug deeper, they discovered something that changed everything about this case. Our Jane Doe had a unique dental procedure, one that only a handful of dentists in the entire region performed at that time, but just when they thought they had a solid lead. If you're as invested in solving this mystery as I am, hit that like button. Every like helps us reach more true crime enthusiasts who might have the piece of information we need to crack this case. The dental records that might have identified her, mysteriously destroyed in a fire. The diner where she was allegedly last seen, demolished years ago. The well-dressed man, vanished into thin air. It's almost as if someone was systematically erasing every trace of her existence. But perhaps the most chilling detail came from a third anonymous caller, who reached out to police in the summer of 1971. What they revealed would change everything we thought we knew about this case. But before we get to that earth-shattering revelation, that third caller, they dropped a bombshell that shook the entire investigation. According to them, our Jane Doe wasn't just any young woman. She was allegedly connected to a prominent East Coast family, a family with enough influence to, well, let's just say make problems disappear. But here's where it gets really dark, folks. The caller claimed they had witnessed our Jane Doe getting into a black Cadillac outside a Baltimore restaurant in early December 1970. The driver, a man wearing a distinctive ring with what appeared to be a family crest. And if you're thinking this detail might be the key to unlocking everything, you're absolutely right. Quick message to our true crime family. If this case is keeping you on the edge of your seat, smash that subscribe button. We're building a community of dedicated sleuths who refuse to let these cases go cold. The investigation team worked tirelessly, cross-referencing every detail. They discovered something fascinating about that single red sock. It wasn't just high-end. It was from a limited Christmas collection. Only 500 pairs were ever made, sold exclusively at 3 department stores in the Baltimore, Washington area. Coincidence? I think not. But just as investigators were closing in on what seemed like solid leads, something happened that changed everything. Key evidence disappeared from the police lockup. The sock, gone. Soil samples, vanished. Even photographs of the crime scene mysteriously went missing. It was like someone was methodically erasing this young woman's existence. The most haunting theory? Some investigators believed our Jane Doe might have been involved with someone powerful, someone with enough influence to orchestrate not just her disappearance, but the systematic removal of evidence that could identify her. And if you're thinking this sounds like something out of a movie, trust me, sometimes reality is darker than fiction. If you're as invested in getting justice for our Jane Doe as we are, hit that like button. Every like helps keep her story alive. Today, over 50 years later, the Beaver County Jane Doe still lies in an unmarked grave. Her true identity remains a mystery, but her story refuses to be forgotten. The case file, though thin, remains open. And here's something that might give you chills. Every Christmas Eve, someone leaves a single red sock at her grave site. The police have never caught who does this, but they suspect it might be someone who knows exactly who she is. Recent developments have brought new hope. Advanced DNA testing is currently being conducted, and genealogical databases might finally give our Jane Doe her name back. But until then, she remains one of Pennsylvania's most haunting mysteries. The questions still haunt investigators today. Who was she? Why was she killed? And perhaps most importantly, who had the power to make her disappear so completely that even decades later, we still don't know her name? Some believe the truth lies in those anonymous phone calls. Others think the answer is hidden in the missing evidence. But one thing's certain, somebody knows something. And maybe, just maybe, one of you watching this video holds the key to solving this case. Before we wrap up this chilling story, if you want to help keep cold cases like this in the spotlight, please hit that subscribe button. Together, we can make sure these victims are never forgotten. Remember, every unsolved case is a family waiting for answers, a story waiting to be told, and a truth waiting to be uncovered. For the Beaver County Jane Doe, that wait has lasted over 5 decades. But maybe, just maybe, her time for justice is finally approaching. Until then, she remains frozen in time, a Christmas Eve mystery that continues to haunt Beaver County to this day. This has been Found Frozen, the haunting mystery of Christmas Eve Jane Doe. If you want to help solve this case, contact the Beaver County Police Department with any information, no matter how small it might seem. Sometimes the tiniest detail can break a case wide open. Stay safe, true crime family. And remember, the truth is out there, waiting to be discovered.